You're listening to the MLS Fantasy Insider, bringing you weekly tips, tricks, and advice for the official MLS fantasy game.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's stream. Getting a little bit of stuff worked out, but of course, first off,
recording in progress.
There we go. Thank you so much, Gene, for letting us know about that. Sorry for a little kind of weirdness that happened last week. I don't know how that second stream got started. That went on for like 6 hours. That was just generic randomness from my desktop. That was strange, but that should have been removed. Appreciate those who let me know about it. I think it might have been we had a little hiccup during the stream at some point, so I don't know if that caused it or what, but it was, I specifically hit the end stream button, so kind of surprised when I first saw that happening, but got it sorted out. Doing a little bit of vamping right now because Ashley is on her way in, had some crazy backups on I-90 apparently up there in Seattle, but it gives me time to get the social prepped as well. Another little bit of early heads up to people. There will be we'll have 2 breaks during the show tonight because I want to make sure we highlight specifically the housekeeping for the double game week, and so I'm going to do that to make it easier with jumping on the YouTube stream or having the quick links with the podcast. So we will have a couple of breaks tonight to pull out that DGW housekeeping, because I do think that's important. So let me get the social posted here. If you are joining us for the first time, welcome to the MLS Fantasy Insider stream. Welcome to the MLS Fantasy Boss Network, and welcome to fantasy in general for MLS. If you've just found us, so happy. Would love to hear, put in the comments below how you found the stream. Please do like and subscribe. Hit the bell notification. I know that this week in particular, being a double game week, we may see some more people. These are very important rounds with all the extra information, all the extra points that are on the line. So happy if you found us, and yeah, like and subscribe and join us live pretty much every Monday so that we can bring you some initial thoughts about MLS fantasy. And lots of times they're maybe a little hot, maybe a little strange, but we're just hours away from the final whistles, so it makes for interesting content tonight, because I know I've got a couple things I need to talk about this round, and I'm not shying away from them. So social is out on Twitter X and over at Blue Sky, so if you'd be so kind, please do like and share those comments there. The Discord prepped real quick. Let's see here. DGW round 13. Big important things going on right here. Send that and publish it to everybody. If you are joining us for the first time and are not a member of our Discord, please do check that out. Who are at here. Here we go. Make sure that doesn't ping everyone again. So submit, and there we go. All right, got everything on Discord, got everything out on social media. So happy's here. How's it going? 14 people. Welcome. Let's see here. We got Tyler's right there in the chat. Shandy, Gene. Yankees are in town. That's why I-90 is backed up. Oh, that could very well be it. I did not know the Yankees were in town. I don't follow the baseball, but my son is playing Wii ball this year, and so he's the Orioles. So they're the orange team. Doesn't really mean much to them, but they've got that big bird on them. And I know they're not doing well in the real thing. Hey, Ashley's here. Look at that.
Yay.
Vamp. And Ashley is here. So let me get it.
I did it.
Timing.
We did it.
Yeah, we did it.
Dude, Tyler, did you see this shit? First of all, congratulations on the move. Second of all, did you see that whole I-90 tunnel was closed in Seattle because there was a fire in it?
Reed showed me the picture you sent him, but
did.
I did
Yeah.
not know.
He does not
I
drive.
don't. I
Well,
well, I do, but now I don't really travel
My-
for work.
my 82-year-old mom texted me and was like, "That tunnel's closed." She doesn't drive. It seems like such a big deal. I thought maybe you knew.
Nope.
Well, it's a nightmare.
And that's the latest in the MLS Fantasy Traffic Report. Join us next week when we talk about
Yeah.
I-75 in Kentucky. Up there for the
Oh, that's
Hellisville Derby.
cute.
That's right, Hellisville. I guess
Is
that's
this straight
I-60.
shot?
I mean, I-75 goes from Michigan to Florida. So, fun
Oh,
fact: before it was
wow.
I-75, it was US 25, and I wrote a report about that highway in college because I am a huge nerd with stuff like that. It's the kind of stuff Black and Red would do. Write a report about a road. All right.
I-90 goes from Seattle to New York.
That's
does.
a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That makes sense because it's an even number, so it goes east to west.
Sure.
Yep.
You are a dork.
That's how the
I knew
roads
about that.
work. That's
I knew about that, and odd numbers go north-south.
That's right. That's how
Okay.
roads work. All right, well, we're not here to talk about how roads work, especially for those of you who are joining us for the first time. This is not what the show is usually like. Well, to be fair, this is what usually the first part of the show is like when we're getting out all the social media,
Yeah.
saying hello to Gene, making sure Gene makes sure that we hit record, which actually we have because Gene is here. And so that's
Thank
what it is.
God.
But we're so happy to have you here. We are here to talk about the double game week, which is round 13, episode 14, round 13. And we're going to we'll talk Highway 101 next. We'll see what happens.
Oh, the 101's beautiful.
It's a lot of stuff. But we are going to talk about other elegant things tonight on the show, and we will get started right now. Hello and welcome to the MLS Fantasy Insider, our preview of round 13 of the 2025 MLS Fantasy season. This episode is brought to you by Being Elegant, the sign of a true victor. Sorry. Actually brought to you by the amazing MLS Fantasy Insider Patreons. It's because of you that we are able to keep this project going. Learn more about our Patreon project over at patreon.com/MLSFI. Let's see here. I'm your host, Reid Conley. Let's see here, from MLSFantasyBoss.com. And tonight I'm joined by my partner in fantasy, Ashley Savage. We'd also like to welcome our very special guest, Tyler Ranchinator Norman, a.k.a. our author who gives you all those cool differential picks with leader of Team Ranchinator and moderator at the MLS Fantasy Boss Discord. How you doing tonight?
Doing
Great.
pretty good. Pretty good.
Excellent. Well, we are so happy to have you here because if people have not been paying attention, we had a very small taste of this earlier in the season, but this is the first major double game week of the 2025 MLS fantasy season. So if you're a veteran, you know what that means. Big points on the line. If you are new, then you have probably come to be like, hey, Reid, what are you talking about? I see people talking about DGWs. I see lots of people throwing out these players. What is going on, and why do games start on Wednesday? Well, I hope that snap came through. I am here to help you with that, and that's exactly what we're going to be talking about tonight on the show. We're going to kind of do a quick recap and focus on that. Quick heads up, we will have 2 breaks during this show so that we have the housekeeping for the double game week specifically broken out for those of you who need that. If you don't need that and just want to go straight to the picks, you can just navigate there through the tools that we help you with. But we hope that you do hang around because first, we're going to get into talking about some of the fantasy recap that we had from this past round 12, which definitely had some interesting moments, and I will own up right now, I didn't see all of them because between Lady Boss's birthday and Mother's Day, didn't have a lot of soccer bandwidth this weekend. But fortunately, Ashley and Tyler, I know you guys had some good scores. I know you had some good talking points. Chat, let me know what you scored this last round. Let me know how you did. And Ashley, tell us how you did and what your takeaways were.
Yeah, I'm the type of mother that insisted on as much soccer as possible. That's how I like to Mother's Day weekend. So, I did a decent amount of watching. No offense to the Lady Boss that we just rolled differently, I had a disappointing week, honestly. I got a 82. And a classic case of midfield let me down again. I really wanted, I've made this mistake before in the opposite way. I really wanted a piece of that Vancouver LAFC game on Sunday in my midfield. I went with Vite over Berhalter because last time I went with Berhalter over Vite. Vite did significantly better, but this time Vite subbed out early and got 1 point, and Berhalter did relatively well. And then also had Mihalovic and Anthony with threes, which was just a real big womp womp womp. But I did do Red Bull defense. I did Valencia and Cornell, which turned out pretty well. Decided to roll the dice with the Vander, and obviously he paid out. Captain Messi, which felt okay. Not the best choice that I could have made on my team, but not the worst. And then really disappointed. I talk about this too much, so I won't say much. If you want to hear me elaborate, go back to any other podcast where we talk about Orjano. But I had Orjano and Freeman, or Freeman from Orlando, Orjano from Cincy on my defense this week, and I'm just tired of spending for him. So this was probably the nail in the coffin for me. A little disappointed in Freeman. I predicted a better game there, but alas, that's just where we're at. So not a lot new for me. Still well outside where I intend to be, not moving up or down in either direction. So double game weeks generally see people stay kind of the same in rankings, I would say. But I'm hoping that maybe this week I can make some moves. A couple surprises for me were Ojeda and Forsberg, and I won't go too much on this, Reid, because I know you have some things to say, but I hadn't seen, and maybe Tyler, maybe you have, jump in please if you had. I hadn't seen a reasoning for him being benched the last 2-3 rounds, Ojeda. But he was.
He had an injury.
He was benched because of the injury all 3 weeks.
It was like a rest sort of injury. Okay. Like it was like nagging.
And so, it's not that I did intentionally faded him. I just kind of gone away from him because of that resting. And then here he comes with a Hattie player of the round. So that was surprising in the sense that he'd started to ride that Orlando bench, but not surprising because he's a fantastic fantasy player. And then Forsberg with over 20 points when I just assumed he was Mr. 6 every round of 5 or 6. So that was definitely surprising. I was also pleasantly surprised with Albert Rusnak, who is still coming back from that injury, put up 14 points on the road. Not incredibly typical of him, but was happy to see that. 2 players that did not surprise me were Carlos Heel and Brian White with 14 and 13 points respectively. Both of those players have been hitting a really good rhythm, a rhythm that I think is worth hopping on board with for the next couple rounds, perhaps. No, maybe not Brian White this round because he's not technically on a double. Neither is New England, but those were 2 people that did not surprise me. Like I said, a couple of disappointments for me was just Colorado in general. I think a lot of people liked Mihalovic against San Jose, but San Jose just destroyed Colorado. Espinoza, the better pick there. A shutout in Colorado at altitude is pretty difficult to do, and San Jose did really well to get that done. Two of their defenders, and then Daniel on the dream team this week. So that was definitely disappointing if you were banking on Colorado, which I somewhat was. And then just some general fantasy takeaways. Mukhtar seems to be kind of finding, again, a rhythm there as well. He's definitely someone I'm interested in this round. And then, I just don't know what to take of Evander. He hits, he doesn't, he flops, he flies. I'm getting very confused by this man at this point, but it seems like at home is a decent route for him. And then also I've said it every week, but I'm going to keep saying it. The LA Galaxy are terrible. I think we're very able to say at this point that you can bet against them, which I don't know if we've said that in our time together, Reid.
Have we danced around it and haven't specifically hit it?
Yeah, I mean, in years past, I mean, I think we've definitely
oh.
alluded to it this year, but I mean, I don't know if that, since you and I have been doing this show together, I don't know that we've ever said the words bet against and LA Galaxy in the same sentence, but I think we're there.
I mean, it makes sense to me. I definitely thought about it, but
Yeah.
I will get into that. But Tyler, what about yourself?
Yeah, I ended on a 104 this week. I just checked. I lost a point. Boo.
Boo.
Uh, I'm now up to overall rank 207. I started off with pretty rough because I was money building. And so I actually kind of did some differentials this week too. For example, I faded Evander. However, I took Rusnak, so I mean, it didn't
Like
really
for
mess up
like,
too much.
yeah, you're good. Yeah.
Um, and then the other guy I grabbed this week was Diego Luna. I really
Hmm.
liked it. He looked like he was strong initially, and then finished on a 6. And I took Danny Bwonga because I really liked the matchup. And I mean, he got 9, which isn't terrible.
Yeah.
Could have been Kuipers or someone like that, but I just didn't trust that. And I wasn't about to fade Surge for him, even though it would have been the right play.
Yeah.
Some surprises to me. It kind of goes with what Ashley was saying with the LA Galaxy, but I'm gonna go the opposite side, and I don't know if this is like a success turning point for the Red Bulls or if it's just solely that the Galaxy are just that bad. And I'm kind of waffling between the two. It's probably a little bit of both because
Yeah.
you do still need to score goals even if you're against a
Yeah.
B level college team. So maybe it'll start being a turning point for the Red Bulls. And I'm actually quite surprised with Minnesota. I know it kind of sounds weird because they have been doing solid lately, but they haven't really been on my radar. It's like a quiet walk up, and I all of a sudden was like, whoa, they know how to ball because they can beat Messi and co. Disappointments this week, which I think is just about for everybody. Sam Surge is a pretty big disappointment for me, along with Mihailovic, who was a disappointment for just about everybody. That guy, I don't know what's happened to
Yeah.
him. He was on a tear, and then the last 2 weeks were easy matchups, and he forgot how to play.
Happens sometimes, though.
I don't even know what to think about that.
Sometimes you play down, right? Sometimes you
Yeah.
only rise to the occasion against the tough ones. I don't know.
Apparently. And then I'm going some just general takeaways. I'm I'm wondering if NYCFC is as bad of a team as offensively as the stats show right now. To give Montreal a clean sheet on the road is
Yeah.
very shocking.
Absurd.
Very, very shocking. And you should be able to score against Montreal. Like they're not that great of a team defensively. And then I looked back, and NYCFC has only scored 4 goals in their last 6 games, which to me is pretty shocking. Also, the fact that 1, 2, 3, 4 of those were home games. So only 2 away games, and they only scored 4 goals. Another is just general takeaway for this entire week and until LA Galaxy figure out what they're doing. Load up teams against them.
Sure.
Load up just about everything you can because it's not going to be pretty. By the way, they're in Philly and then they're hosting LAFC. So
Yeah.
those are the guys to target. I have 2 more takeaways. First one is when 2 good defensive teams meet, it doesn't always mean that it's going to be a snooze fest. There could be a lot of goals. And this week that was Orlando versus New England. They were both on like almost record setting clean sheets for their clubs. And then it turned into a 3-3 brawl, which is definitely something to keep in mind. Just because teams are doing well defensively when they go against each other doesn't mean it's going to be 0-0. And then keep eyes on DeJuan Jones in San Jose. This guy, all of a sudden, with that trade, is figuring out how to play again. It brings me back to the New England times when it was him and Brandon By that you were grabbing it every week.
Yep.
So, and he's on 3 assists in 2 games now with San Jose. So keep a very close eye on him.
Maybe more to come later. Thank you for that, Tyler. I have a few just general fantasy talking points that I saw. Like I said, I didn't catch a whole lot, but I try to keep up when that does happen to me. One thing I would say is I know it was pretty popular this past round to roll with a Chicago keeperoo or some differentials right there, and it almost paid out for those of us who went that direction. It's so close to having that pay out, but while that didn't work, I was surprised that there wasn't a little more point production out of the midfield for Chicago. They went up against Atlanta. We thought that was a good match for some opportunities. They came away with the points. Kuipers remains the primary target for points, though, and it's just been so inconsistent with some of these midfielders that it's been hard. So I was a little surprised to see that, but yeah, Kuipers did come out. Had him on my team. Before I get too far, I had 88 points on this round. I was pleased. Won all but one of my head-to-heads. Congrats, FC Star Fox, for that victory you got. As far as overall, so a lot of 80s, a lot of 90s, some triple digits, great scores in chat. Congratulations, guys, everything I'm seeing there. If you got, I might have actually gone down in the ranks, though, for some strange reason. I don't remember what my score was last time. But I would still say if you scored in the upper 80s to low 90s, you were probably happy with your score, depending on where you were in the ranks. But a lot of people in some of our most competitive fantasy boss leagues, they got these high 80s, low 90s scores. And so I think that was definitely a solid score for this past round. Triple digits was amazing. So congrats everyone who got that, or the upper 90s. So do not be disgruntled if you got somewhere in that range. It was a good opportunity for points there. Back into some of my takeaways. You had mentioned Minnesota, and that's exactly right. I mean, there's been some good games there for Halawange. Go tell me, Tyler. You can say it.
Who? Bongo Halawane?
Yes, Halawane. He's sub-9 player. He's gotten a good score in 3 of his last 4 games. So he's gotten like 6s and 7s, which is not bad. I think that definitely puts him as like a differential option, perhaps, or an off-the-bench option for you, and that sub-9 price is pretty good with the value. I agree with Ashley. I'm off Orshano. I kind of mentioned that a week or 2 ago. Went back into it for this match. It's just not working out. He played back in the wing, this time in the formation. It's just not working out. Welcome back, Ojeda. Welcome back, Heel. I guess not Heel. Heel's just adding more to his value, but those 2 players came through. We had all those questions about Ojeda, which were never really answered well enough for most of us last round, so I did not have him on my team. I did have Evander. I did have Mukhtar. That worked. I did go with Anthony on my team, and Portland did not come through. So I thought they could do a little bit more against Sporting Kansas City. Didn't work out, and unfortunately, I thought so much that they could take advantage of Sporting Kansas City that I left Bernardeschi 7 on my bench. So I did not get that, but we did talk up Bernardeschi last round as well, and he did score well there. The last one before I get into, I guess, a comment I have to make is Rusnak fixture proof? We talked about that. He's come back. He scored some. Didn't go with him because he was on the road, and he drops a 14. So is he getting there? Ashley, quick no. Tyler?
For Rusnak? I mean, I had him on my team last week, so I believe in him.
But is he fixture proof, Tyler?
I think not quite, but he's really close to it.
So we will not call him fixture proof.
I agree with that.
But we will call him a strong away consideration.
I think if he gets a combined score of 14 or more this week, he's fixture proof.
Let us know what you think in the comments or in chat right now. Do you think Rusnak is fixture proof, or at least an away midfielder you will always consider? Now, the two things I have to say. So I picked a really bad time last week to go on a rant about a couple of fantasy players. And the first one was my rant about Messi, where we talked about the captaining him. I did captain Messi. I did have him on my team. And I want to have a small clarification there of I did not then and still don't now, because there were several players who got as good or better points that we even talked about for potential captain options for this round. I do not think he is this automatic captain like we're always sort of putting him into. And so that's where I went. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I got the points. He got an 11. You got 22 points. It was a good round. He did the things you hope he does consistently, but he's not always as consistently as he once was. And so I still think that there can be legitimate conversations about, is Messi just an auto slot in? Maybe that changes for where you are in the ranks or what you're playing for. But I still think that was the point I made last week. He did well, and I did captain him, so you have to weigh all of those against the round. But I still think it's a viable conversation for who else is up there that could go against Messi. I don't think it's an ACM sort of situation. The other one may be harder to say, and it is, I said hard things about Forsberg last round when we were talking about
he heard you.
that he apparently he did. So good on him. The 7-0 trouncing that happened with Red Bull versus LA. And he came away 2-2 with that one. Just fantastic, crazy points. If you captained him, well on you. And I picked the last week to rant about him. And I'm not backing down from that, because the rant about Forsberg at its core is he is incredibly inconsistent with who he is as a fantasy player. And maybe you're willing to take several rounds of 2s or 3s or just poor points to get the hauls here and there, but you can't even guarantee the hauls here or there. And so in some ways, I think this underlines that you can't predict this. This is easily like Surge getting 4 goals right here. Like, players pop off this kinds of time. I still don't think we've seen the consistency out of the Red Bulls and Forsberg himself that merits him being as highly prized of a fantasy player as potentially he was at the beginning of the season with people coming in. So bad timing maybe, and maybe no one even thought about these rants, but they did jump out to me as funny that I picked last week to talk about them, and so I did want to own it and have that quick aside. But I will end on this final comment and say I also made a comment about Vancouver's Berhalter as well, as I thought he could be a potential target and might be bringing some of his CCC form into MLS, with him potentially maybe being a better target during CCC when he will be sitting out. He got a 7 this round, so would have been a very respectable score, especially so those of us who pulled out people like Mihailovic with a 3 that you could have dropped in there. So I think it's good to see that for him. Anything with Forsberg, I know we'll get more to the double game week soon. You just need to weigh that against it, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more. But fun round, very interesting, and of course, if you did not catch in the opening we had here, some fun banter between Minnesota and Miami that I encourage people to check out with our
And by Miami, you mean David Beckham.
I do mean by David Beckham. I do mean David Beckham being elegant in all things as he does. So fun little banter there. So definitely check that out. But what we are going to be checking out for the rest of the show is more details about the double game week that is round 13 and what you need to know. We'll be doing that housekeeping next, right after this. I feel like I should have done the intro in like an English accent to really hit home the elegant part, but
I got it.
It might have offended some people.
Your English accent?
Possibly. Who knows? Who knows? Yeah. Let's see here. Get the... Oops, keep that. No. Okay. Well, that's why I did that.
Captain Mondo. Who do you pick?
Where'd it go? Yes, that's the right one. Oh, there it is. That's the right one. Get rid of that. Okay. Bring in the old league scores and housekeeping. Little window there real quick. Okay. Blue Sky. Posting out there. Twitter X's. Posting out there. All right. Social is out on Twitter X and over at Blue Sky. If you would be so kind, please do retweet those right there because we're going to be talking about double game week stuff. And it is so good. All right. Oh, Eli, Messi and Evander, the only fixture-proof players.
Evander fixture proof is
miss.
not true.
Yeah,
Hot take.
ew. Messi,
Evander
sure.
is
Eli, come on the show and
plays.
talk about that, Eli. Have to get that taken.
Yeah,
Evander is not even close to picture proof.
ew.
All right, here we go.
His stats say different.
Hello and welcome back. We're talking about the housekeeping for double game week round 13, pulling this out specifically. First off, congratulations to everyone who made it out of the Fantasy Champions League second round qualifier and punched their ticket into the Champions League. It was always fun, and congratulations if you got it out of there. If you didn't, don't worry. We are in the third quarter qualifier for the Fantasy Champions League, and that runs from this round through round 18, where the top 50 teams will be taken out to duke it out again during the Champions League competition. Double game week. That's what you're here for. That's what we're going to talk about. So double game week means everything is starting on Wednesday. So if this is your first time experiencing the double game week, the games are going to kick off on Wednesday. Teams are going to start locking, and players will start locking on Wednesday, and that is May 14th. And the time is 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and several teams are going to be playing there. We have 7:30, 8:30, 9, 10. So we've got kind of the usual Apple TV schedule for the later half of the round that we usually see. So a bunch of teams are going to be playing. Now, what does this mean? If you have not been through this before, the players you pick from these teams, you will get their points twice, one from each game, assuming they play both, and assuming they don't get any kind of cards or penalties, but you're going to get all of those points from those games. It is not a simple ×2. Traditionally, in the past, we have usually seen a multiplier more like 1.5 times would be a reasonable expectation of what kind of points you could see from these players, but you are going to see more points, and it's going to be amazing. Your captains are going to be so awesome. This double game week does also include several derby games that we're going to be seeing throughout this whole time. Most of those are going to be on Saturday, but there will be a few others that are speckled around through the season. I know we have St. Louis and Sporting Kansas City kind of playing, which is looked at a bit like a derby there, I guess. But we've got Montreal and Toronto. We've got New York Red Bulls versus New York City FC. We've got the Hell is Real Derby. We've got part of the Texas Derby going on. We've got Rocky Mountain Cup. We've got part of the Cascadia. So we've got all kinds of teams who are not only playing double game weeks, but playing important double game weeks. El Trafico is near the end of the round as well. So lots of
Florida Derby.
Of the Florida Derby. Yeah, lots of Derby games that are here. When we hit Saturday, you're going to see your usual Apple TV lineup. We've got Montreal and Toronto kicking things off at 2:30. Then we got a 4:30 game, and then we got the 7:30s and everything from there. Your Aroos are going to be limited, and they're going to be much more difficult during this round. Usually you look at those Sunday games. We've got Miami, Orlando. We've got LA Galaxy versus LAFC. But by then, all of the single game week teams have played because we do have 4 single game week teams: Chicago, Dallas, New England, and Vancouver. Of those 4 teams, Dallas has the latest game. That is 8:30 p.m. on Saturday, May 17th. So Dallas will be your best target for a scrub on your team. Trying to get those 4.0 scrubs. they're going to be the ones that will let you preview the most points that you can, i.e., you'll be able to at least preview everything from Wednesday before you make some decisions about who you may want to have coming into your team off of your bench, or at least if you're doing an auto roo, that'll help you see what you're working with right there, because you will be limited in your options right there. Head over to the MLS Fantasy Boss Discord, check the mega reference. That will let you see which teams are doing the doubles and everything. I am going to only cover the teams that either have a double home or a double away game right now. But everybody with those 4 I just mentioned have some kind of double. So double home teams: Austin, Montreal, Nashville, and San Diego. Not a bad mix. Not knocking it out of the park, but four teams right there. We also have 4 teams who are double away, and that is Cincinnati, Sporting Kansas City, New York Red Bulls, and Seattle. So pay attention to that. We've talked about the last couple of weeks the importance of the home field advantage and the impact you can have traveling, especially if you're having to travel twice during the round, the cross country. So pay attention to that. Everyone else, except for the 4 teams I mentioned with the single, have a split, 1 home, 1 away. Take a look at that. We'll talk more about that when we get into our player targets coming up in the next round. But also, and I'll let Tyler do a quick little plug about this, pay attention to those injuries. A lot of cards in the last round, even some red ones.
Mm-hmm.
If you have someone on a yellow card watch, you need to be careful, because them playing 2 games could be at risk. Them playing 180 minutes could be at risk, as coaches are trying to manage those times, manage those risks. So, Tyler, do you have anything important for injuries or yellow card warnings that you want to mention right now?
I didn't really go through injuries,
No,
but
that's fine.
For yellow card warnings, there's a few big ones. I'll name like the 3 biggest ones, which are Kevin Denke for Cincinnati's on yellow card watch. That's a pretty big one to keep an eye on. Ezekiel Ponce for Houston. I know most people won't have him, but that could really affect the second game. And then there's 3 defenders on the Red Bulls, including Omar Valencia, who a lot of people like, that are on yellow card watch.
Yeah, and that could be huge, especially since Red Bull's first game is away, and then their second is away at Nashville, and then they're playing the Hudson River Derby. So that could be a huge impact for that derby right there. So check that out. Head over to the MLS Fantasy Boss Discord. You can see the full list of double game teams. You can see the full list of injuries that people have reported, and just generally chat about your strategy for the upcoming double game week. And speaking of the strategy, we will get into players who we are looking at targeting for that double game week right after this. A little choppy there. Got a little tongue-tied.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, maybe it's just me. It's funny. I got a message on Blue Sky where someone was asking me a question about the stats and how they were calculated, and they basically said, since I what do they call me? Since I was an admin for the great website, and I was like, that's not what I do. Thank you.
That is not.
That's not what I do. But I answered the question as best as I could. But
good for you.
That was pretty fun. All right, let me get the final social out there. Yeah, not always doing this mid plug, but I definitely felt like this week it was merited.
A lot happening.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. We'll probably, this is kind of the situations when we're really looking at that. Like if we have a huge interview or these double game week rounds, that's definitely when we want to. That didn't do anything at all. That's definitely when we want to do these middle plugs. Otherwise, just keep it going. I think that new format's been doing good for people to help us keep the pace. This is a DGW. It's going to go long. You all know that. All right. The social is out for our player target round, so please do be so kind and like and share that and help people come join in. I'll do a little plug in Discord so they know that now we're talking about players, in case anyone has been just hanging around to wait for that. Let's see here, getting ready to talk targets for DGW round see if we get any more. Post. Not gonna hit up everybody. Just a little notification there. David Beckham. Yeah, Pink Phony Club. That was solid. That is solid.
I mean,
sports
I love
banter.
a pun.
Mm-hmm.
I love a pun. So
It's just solid sports banter. Megan already coming in there. I have Evander this week, so teasing us all, Megan. We'll figure out more there. Okay, here we go. Let me change the zip. Now here we go. Hello and welcome back. We're talking about our player targets for double game week round 13. Kicking off things as always with our keepers and defenders. Tyler, who are you looking at?
Yeah, this was actually a little bit of a difficult week for me defensively. I have a few people that I like, but narrowing it down is kind of difficult in my opinion. So right now I'm on a keeperoo of Joe Willis into Larice, so basically Nashville into LAFC. And the person I'm debating instead of Sirwa is or instead of Willis is Sirwa, and I know that sounds crazy coming from my mouth because I've been the anti-Montreal guy forever and ever. But I actually kind of like the matchups for Columbus or for Montreal. I keep reading who they're playing. For Montreal, I like the matchups. And so that kind of leads into my defenders this week. I have Dante Seeley currently because he's been playing so high in the attack for Montreal. Although he very easily could turn into DeJuan Jones for me this week. I just kind of need to go through and figure out what I'm looking for in that regard. With San Jose, I'm also very worried about them getting scored on, given they're playing against two teams that are pretty good at scoring goals. For my other two defenders, I have Kai Wagner because I just want someone who's taking corners against the Galaxy, and Andy Nahar currently. I'm running a Ottaru. For people that don't know, that's basically setting two scrub defenders and letting three either mids or like two mids and a forward or two forwards and a mid battle it out on your bench for two spots. And I feel like all DGWs, it's best to run that. I'm interested in Valencia, but with him being on yellow card watch, I'm leaning towards no. I don't even know what to think of San Diego this like in general right now defensively. They were good and then they were bad and then they were good and then they were bad. So I don't know what to think. And I've kind of looked at Bongi a few times, but I'm not fully sure if I want him. I'm more leaning towards having like Nahar and Wagner are basically locks for me. And then Seeley could either be DeJuan Jones or Bongi this week.
Ashley.
Yeah, I'm going a little bit of a different route than Tyler, which is interesting because we usually overlap a little bit more in this. But I'm looking at the Philly keeper to Loris or San Diego keeper. He's cheap, and I'd get to see that game. I like the matchup. Even without Andre Blake, I think that Philly can still keep a clean sheet. I don't know if they'll do both, but I think they could do one. So that's where I'm currently landing right now. I also have Nahar and Wagner. I think that those are two of the staples, I would say, for this week. But then I'm looking at either Heinz Ike for Austin or McNair for San Diego. I really like San Diego's matchups this week. I agree with what Tyler said about the on and off and hot and cold, but two home games against Colorado, who's not super efficient scoring on the road, and then Sporting Kansas City, who's also not super efficient at scoring down the road. I like San Diego in their home form, so I'm looking there, and then I just like Austin's matchups too. I'm not sure which one I like more, and that will kind of depend on which defender I start, because I definitely agree with Tyler that this is a 2 defensive scrub um set up for a double game week, and just let your bench fight it out. So I will only end up with 3, obviously.
Which brings the big question there. If this is a primarily auto-roo kind of round, does that apply to keepers as well? Because you guys have named several. I've definitely seen Lloris as a common option. I've seen Willis as a common option. Definitely understand the Willis. Red Bulls is a team that has been inconsistent, like we've just talked about. Questions about what they could bring. Nashville's had some inconsistency. DC can also be scary though, coming in with Benteke. So there's definitely some questions there about what could happen. But I understand that thought. The interesting one that I've seen is Stuver as a potential keeper, because that Austin game is awful for any kind of a route that you might want to play. And so you could just roll with one keeper. If you don't want to fool with any of this, throw all the money into the bench. It's, in general, as we've said about keepers, most of their points simply come from playing. If you get clean sheets, if you get the double clean sheets, that's going to be a huge bonus that you're going to get, and that's what you're going for. Stuver comes in home both games. Ashley already said likes the idea, going up against Atlanta in the opening, which has been struggling, and then this next round going up against Vancouver. Definitely.
Kind of on that same page, though, why not just look at a triple up for Philly? Because they have LA Galaxy into Atlanta.
Exactly.
Which
Philly
is
is
even
good.
better matchup.
The question about Philly is Blake was out last round because of a knee injury.
Yeah.
Do we know his anticipated time back, Tyler?
I have no clue.
We have no
I didn't
clue.
even know he was out, to be honest.
So he was out with a knee
out.
injury. So you could get a very cheap keeper with Philadelphia. Blake could be back, which would probably be the ideal scenario with that. Or is it going to be a multi-game out? Is he out the last game, this game, and then comes back for the Atlanta game? So do you only again get a single game with keeper? A little bit of question around that. That's why look to the community, see what can come. But there's definitely some ways you could look to set up this potential keeper. I think the top keepers have been touched on that people are looking at. So, but mostly you're looking for someone who's going to play 2 games. That's the important part of what this round is you want someone who is going to play 2 games, and anything else on top of that is going to be bonus for what you're hoping for. And so look at the options. The home field, very important, but you don't have to lock into a keeperoo this time, because it will be harder if you're not going to use a single game week keeper, which I don't suggest you do. It's much less likely you'll get the same amount of points or more than a keeper who plays twice. Then you're looking at trying to match one of the 7:30 games with potentially a 10:30 game. And so that's why Lloris has been such a popular option with a lot of the other teams. Seattle, kind of scary. We could see there. I've seen San Diego as an option there that I could definitely see making some sense with some of the struggles Colorado has had with that. They are then home to Sporting Kansas City with the double home games. So San Diego definitely another one that's in the mix of who could potentially be an option. Other than that, you guys have touched on the defenders. From what I've seen so far, it looks like Wagner, Nahar, and McNair are going to be chalk for what I've seen in a lot of the teams right now. Like those are the 3 guys there, with 2 scrub defenders and people playing it in. So it could be that third defender is who rotates out for you, and then you can see what goes there. But that's what I've seen as pretty consistent chalk. So maybe you want to move away from that completely. Check out Team Ranchinator's article this week. Quick question for you all, though. Saw it come through in chat. Is there any team that you all are considering tripling up on in this round? Tyler?
Defensively or just in general?
Just in general. I mean, if you're going to triple up, that's very likely you're going to be getting someone in the defensive unit. Maybe not. But
I mean,
is
Nashville and Philly are my main ones.
I'm currently tripled up on San Diego. I have a San Diego defender, a midi, and a striker.
I
San
am not
Diego.
tripled on San Diego.
San Diego, Philly.
Nashville was my first triple, like immediately.
Yeah, Nashville makes sense to me. I hear the Philly. I'm close to a triple there. But the only legit triple I have is San Diego.
Yeah, I think the keeper situation makes the Philly triple a bit more questionable. Some inconsistency at forward makes that a bit more questionable unless you're going to really go all in on their defenders. Definitely Nashville makes sense. You're likely not looking at a forward there. And then I've definitely seen San Diego triple. So answering that question that we had in chat right there from Ojama, that's definitely options. They're definitely viable options for that in this round for sure. Since those triples will include pretty much in every situation a midfielder, let's just start talking about midfielders. Ashley, who are you looking at?
Yeah, I went straight to Ojeda because I've had him all season until he wasn't playing. So, fool me once. I like Dreyer this week. I've liked him a lot recently. I like Mukhtar. I currently have a Vander, but I'm still not fully trusting in him. And then I like Mukhtar. I like the Nashville double home. I like his home production. And then the last midi that I did put on my bench was Rusnak. He's a double road, but it's two teams that I would consider both rivalry games. And so depending on rotation, I like him in both of those games. I'm a little worried he gets rotated for the Wednesday game. And if that's the case, I have a couple bubble middies that I'm looking at. I like Espinoza. I like Sullivan for Philly. I think I like Diego Luna, but I'm not quite sure that he can get the point production that some of the other middies can in his matchups. But he's got a rivalry match too. So, and then his home game is against Portland, who doesn't have the greatest defense. So, that's why he's kind of a bubble player for me. But I'm not crazy confident that Rusnak starts, so I'm not sure that he stays on my team after Wednesday.
Tyler.
Yeah, kind of piggybacking on that Rusnak, I actually think that he is going to start both games, and my reasoning for that is he was sub so early this past weekend. He was like a 62 or 63-minute sub, which Schmetzer never subs that early for anybody.
Sure.
That makes me think he's planning on starting him against LAFC, and then I don't think he benches anybody against Portland because Schmetzer knows that that's the rivalry game to always start.
That
so
makes sense.
I think he will be available for both. That does not mean I have him. In fact, I do not have him this week as of right now. I currently have Dreyer, I have Mukhtar, and I have Ojeda, which seem like the chalk picks. And then I have a couple that I'm kind of debating on who I want in the spot. I currently have Espinoza, which I really like the points he's generating. He's pushed further up with DeJuan Jones there now, so there's higher chance of him actually contributing to goals. Although I am a little worried about the New England defense, so that second game, which is why I'm kind of hesitant on him. And my other mid, I don't even know why, but he just popped out to me and I picked him because of that. So there's a chance I just keep him because just for that simple reason is Jack McGlynn.
Okay.
He actually had a pretty good game against the Sounders. He finished on a 12 with only an assist. That's it. And I was like, whoa, this is a this is someone to keep an eye on. I know they play Minnesota at home, which will be their tougher of the two matchups. But then he's in Dallas, which is a rivalry. And last time he played Dallas, he racked up 7 points on solely bonus points. So he's someone I really am trying to keep an eye on. His home production is very good, so I'm not super worried about the Minnesota game. And then into a rivalry game. If it's not Jack McGlynn, I want to go with his Philly counterpart, which is Quinn Sullivan.
Mm-hmm.
I like both of them. I'm just not sure which one I like more right now, if that makes sense.
Does.
And I just want to throw it out there. It's pretty obvious I didn't mention Evander. I have a love-hate relationship with him right now.
Amen.
Vert saying he's matchup proof is like a hard no for me. He definitely is not when you look at his stats. Every time I have Evander, he pops off. Every time I have him, he does nothing. Every time I fade him, he pops off. So if you guys want me to, I'll just grab him this week
Don't
so
take
that
him.
he really
Don't
busts
take
with
him.
everybody. And then I'm also kind of hoping that just Denki gets his yellow card on Wednesday so that Evander has a rougher game on the weekend. Sorry, Reid.
No, I
Why
need him
so
for that game.
spiteful?
I don't care about the first game.
Yeah.
That is the derby. That is the derby.
Yeah. Rusnak may find a way onto my team. I just need to figure out. I threw this team together pretty quickly today, and I'm gonna tinker it throughout the week. I think Rusnak will find a way onto my team. And I was a believer in Luna last week. Ashley mentioned him, and I like his matchups.
Right.
Because Portland isn't very good defensively, especially if Crepo's in that. And then Colorado is a Rocky Mountain Derby. I do like the matchups. I just can't justify having him this week.
Fair.
Yeah.
So as far as chalk goes, I think Mukhtar is definitely one of the chalk picks that's going to be there. I think Dreyer is a chalk pick. Ojeda, I've definitely seen in a lot of teams. Sullivan, I've seen in a lot of the teams. I feel like of those four, Sullivan could be the one that you drop off for the chalk. I definitely see why he's there. He's had some inconsistencies. Love the Jack McGlynn call out. These bonus points that he's been putting up are exactly the kind of production that we were talking about earlier in the year that made him so attractive for us going into there with all these double-digit points. And the one thing I'll add about that Minnesota game is look back at this Minnesota game. The Minnesota-Miami where they won 4-1. Miami had the 67% possession in that game. Miami had 732 total passes to Minnesota's less than 300. They had 15 crosses to Minnesota's 2. Minnesota does not appear to be a team that is necessarily focused on this possession and will let you have the ball. And that seems to play into McGlynn's wheelhouse for generating bonus points, fantasy bonus points. So while that may not be a W for Houston when they come out, if McGlynn can generate solid points, that could still be a good result. Now, you're really hoping for an assist at least in order to kind of scratch into the double-digit points, but it would not be beyond reason to see a 6 or a 5 out of that game. And then coming into one of the Texas derbies, if he does get better, you could potentially be looking at a 20-something point game, or at least maybe some scores in the teens, which not too bad for a midfielder with his price point of, well, actually no, he's almost 11 million now, so
yeah.
you're definitely hoping for that. It's like you're definitely hoping for something in those double digits, probably getting closer to 20 for that kind of investment. But it's definitely there, even if he does not come away with an assist or something from that game. There is the potential for those bonus points. So I really love that pick that you've thrown out there. I am not sure about Evander. The one thing that stands out to me is it's still early in the season, But Cincinnati is now on top of the Eastern Conference, and these are 2 Eastern Conference games. So there is possibly more on the line this round than it could be in some other double game weeks if they were playing against a Western Conference team where maybe you could rest someone. If Dinke does go down, that does put some additional pressure onto the team that could impact Evander. So there's definitely lots of questions around him that do concern me going into this round, but I understand what people are looking for when they see him. And as we see the pundits say all the time, like Evander is that X factor. He gives the cushion that Cincinnati needs for some of these other pieces to fall together from some of the other quality players that we have, that Evander helps to unlock some of that. But that does involve all of those players being there. I would be much more tempted, though, by Rusnak than I necessarily would be by Evander, because we have struggled going to Columbus in the past. That has been always a pretty chippy game going on. So I do like the potential of Rusnak's just consistency as that. Love the Espinoza call out. I think definitely San Diego's going to be a target right there. Share the reservations about RSL right here. I've seen some people talk about Atlanta. I do not think I agree with the chat going on there. I don't think that's a team that is even on my radar for this double game week. There's just been a lack of consistency right there, and so I'm not liking that at all. I've seen people who have thrown out Bernardeschi. I think that could be a viable bench play that you put in there. He's on a great bit of run of form. They're going to be at home to Cincinnati, then they go to Montreal. The travel is not huge in the grand scheme of how travel works with America and the league of where people are traveling in North America. So that's definitely one of the better options right there. But I think you guys have touched on a lot of that. Chat's touched on some of those as well. So it'll be interesting to see where people land at the end of the day. Let's move on to talking about forwards. Tyler, who are you looking at?
I think this is probably the chalkiest position this week. Bawanga should be pretty much a lock with very good games. Messi is Messi, so you gotta have him. And then Chucky Lozano is my third, which is pretty much the pivot spot for anybody. If I decide not to run Joe Willis, Chucky is probably gonna get kicked off, and then I would debate on like Surridge or Alonso Martinez. I'm also keeping my eyes on the guy going for the record in Seattle, Danny Musovski. That guy's on a tear. Why not give him a little bit of a run out too? They have 2 rivalry matches essentially, as Ashley has said. So I personally wouldn't do it, but why not try it? But it's probably gonna be Chucky Lozano for me.
Ashley.
Yeah. Hate to be indifferent, but Luanga, Messi, Chucky were 3 of, I think, the first players on my team. I think some bubble picks for me were Benteke and Chicho. I don't hate the Danny Musovski shout just out of consistency, because he has scored in his last 5 games, and LAFC is a former club of his, but I'm not wasting a spot on the Moose. I think that those 3 players, I will say, as a callback to how Tyler and I were talking previously about formation and starting all 5 defenders with 2 scrubs for that auto-roo, I currently have Messi on my bench. I'm not crazy confident he does both. There always seems to be a reason. I feel like especially this season, Marciano's been more likely to rest him, and so they do have cross-country travel on that front end, and then back to Florida. So currently, just out of precaution, he's on my bench.
So again, I think you guys have nailed the chalk. That's what I've been seeing
Yeah.
in so many teams right there, and I agree that it's that third spot that seems to be the pivot. Unless you are seriously concerned about Messi's rotation, which we could definitely see here. This could be like a 140-minute kind of round for him at those points, but he definitely can do things in the time he's there. Third spot, Arango definitely an option. Rossi could be an option. I mean, Montreal, they're back at home, but they're still just outshone by LA Galaxy as the worst team in the league. But definitely some options for Rossi. And again, the Hell is Real Derby, just a lot of crazy happens there, and so there could definitely be points on both sides right there. Off Surridge, I don't think I'd go from that. I mean, I definitely see how Red Bulls and DC looks like a tempting game for him, and he could get some points out of there. But there have also been tempting good matchups that we've seen before where he's blanked. And so I think other people that we have talked about are definitely more consistent than Surridge would be. And unfortunately, I'll just say this right here. Up at the top of the show, we were talking about Kuipers. We were talking about White. We were talking about some of this production. They are on a single, so they are not in this conversation. Oftentimes, I bring up we usually see a single game week player come in here and do something. Who is it going to be? Who would you? We're not even going to do that today because it's so unpredictable. It's usually a defender who gets a goal or something crazy that happens, like a keeper who gets a penalty kick saved. It's one of those crazy things. It's not something that can be predicted, and so there's just such a low chance of single game week players being there. Going to Philly, I don't like Baribo's consistency. I don't like the playing time that he's been getting. You could say similar things about Navarro, who we mentioned before. It's just a lack of consistency. Some players you may have seen pulled last week, and that could be in preparation for the double. This is a huge time for Because MLS to come into the scenario and what we see coaches doing and how we see them planning. But be sure to take some notes about it because, and don't really do it, we'll do that for you. But pay attention because this could be signs into how coaches may be managing teams later in the season. But there will also, of course, be impacts of where they are in the lineup right there. But yeah, everyone else, I think you can start going through the list. They're just on the radar for could they be that third spot. And in my mind, you're really thinking of three players, and it's Lozano, it's Arango, and it's Rossi for that third spot to pair up with Bouanga and Messi. So that's how I'm going to tie back into talking about your chalk, but also throwing out some other tidbits that we see. Going to chat real quick. Yeah, a lot of the same things that people are seeing. Vitroni. Oh my gosh, that's one coming out of left field.
Bold.
I don't think I trust that one. Yeah, a lot of the same things there. So, but now we're going to get to what I'm looking forward to, and that is captain. So who are you all looking at for your captain pick going into this double game week, Ashley?
Yeah, I like Denis Bouanga. Like I said in the last section, I'm not starting Messi right now. So I don't think I'm going to captain him. So for me, it's Denis Bouanga followed closely by Hani Mukhtar, honestly.
Okay. Tyler.
It feels so good to be saying Bouanga is a captain again.
I missed him, right?
And I am on that same side, and I have it on Bouanga right now. Although if Messi does travel and start in San Jose, there's a chance I look at him.
If he doesn't travel, do you keep him on your team?
No.
No.
That's just a good one to ask there. It's interesting. So you're willing to opt in for Bouanga over one of the playmaking midfielders?
Yes. He's on a tear right now. I mean, I even grabbed him last week just because I noticed his scores.
Sure.
Since CCC has ended, he has just started playing very well.
It's also basically a double home because his second home game is at LA Galaxy and
it's the Galaxy.
And it's the Galaxy, and I think that game alone is good enough. And I've said this before, and it's usually at Seattle. But if you go back and look, Denis Bouanga scores against the Seattle Sounders. Like,
Mhm.
it's like a death and taxes situation with that. So while
Yeah.
Seattle's defense is okay, they're not great this year. They're okay. At LAFC, I, as much as I love my Sounders, Denis Bouanga gets a goal. So
Yeah.
when you combine those two games and his form, I think it just makes sense.
Makes sense. As for myself, I'm going to take the path that Ashley helped pave last week, and I will not be talking about my captain picks tonight. I will save that for my captain's video that will come out on Wednesday, so that we can get that out for you. As I will take a little bit of time to look over some more of the numbers and see some more of the stats as they come out with some of the XG and go from there. But I've seen a lot of similar conversations in chat. People are looking at Bawanga, people are looking at Ojeda, people are looking at Mukhtar. I've got a Messi shot out there. Like, I get it. I get why you're looking at that. I think it's risky this round, but I definitely see why that's there. Some people mentioning Dreyer, so definitely kind of toss ups between these attacking midfielders and Bawanga is what it seems to really be focused on. So see where I land on Wednesday. And with that being the final segment, let's wrap everything up with our plugs. So Tyler, what you got?
I'm gonna plug the people that have been helping me with the article, the differentials article. It's been Matt and I for the first few weeks, and then a couple weeks ago we took on Meg, and she's been a massive help. And they're a lot higher than me overall because I kind of just like to have fun. But just keep an eye on that article. We've had some very good picks lately, and I've actually been taking some of our picks every single week as of late because I'm trusting what we are producing.
Ashley.
Yeah, I'm just gonna plug, to piggyback off that, just generally the Discord. Like we talked about earlier, if you're worried about who had a knock last week or who's coming in with yellow card watch and stuff like that, all that data is there. MLS doesn't do the best job at providing that coming into these, if at all, in these double game weeks. So definitely head over to Discord, chat with some of the great folks, and get all the information you need heading into the first big double of the season.
All right, as for myself, just thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight for this first big round. It's so fun to see all the interaction in chat. Be sure to check out MLSFantasyBoss.com. I'll be putting out some articles later tonight that we have ready, but we're going to be fast and furious as quickly as we can with the content this round to get it all ready for you by Wednesday. But also head over to the MLS Fantasy Boss Discord. That is where so much conversation happens, so much of the back and forth and ideas change in real time as people are talking about the numbers and the odds as they are updated for this coming round. So be sure to check that out. MLSFantasyBoss.com/Discord, the easiest way to get over there and find out how to join for free and just be a part of that community. It's such an awesome thing to be a part of and see continue to grow. So yeah, check out all the content that we have coming out right now. Thank you again for joining us, and as always, good luck.